Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a long arm quilter. And here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. Today's video is being sponsored by Craftsy, and Craftsy is an online community where members are able to take classes in over 20 different categories, things like knitting, crocheting, sewing, quilting, baking, cooking, drawing, painting, you name it, it's probably on there. There are over 2,000 classes that you're able to take in those categories. And I have been looking at some lately about cupcake decorating, you know, with all these new grandbabies. That kind of stuff is coming back around for me. You know, it's been a long time since we've had little ones. So some cute cupcake decoratings, how fun would that be to do with my grandkids or to do for my grandkids? I've also been looking at a class on foundation paper piecing. If you are wanting a step-by-step tutorial on how to do foundation paper piecing, this would be a great class for you to take as well. She does use that 1/4-inch ruler, the add a quarter ruler that I showed last week. She uses that in her class. All the classes on Craftsy are done in step-by-step instructions. So you have tutorials to watch, videos that you follow along with, assignments that you can do also. And so it's a very great way to learn something new. Perhaps for the holidays, you're wanting to give yourself something for the new year. Perhaps taking a drawing class or a painting class. You'll want to get Craftsy. They are offering a Black Friday special that is $1.49 for the premium membership for 1 whole year. What a great Christmas present that would be to yourself. This is for new members only, so if you've never been a part of Craftsy, this would be a great time to check it out. Over 2,000 classes, like I mentioned, in lots of different categories. This would be a great thing to give yourself for the holidays and maybe pick up a new craft along the way, whatever that may be. So you will need to click the link down below. That will take you to the site that will give you $1.49 for the premium membership for a whole year. And that is for new members only, as I mentioned. So I appreciate Craftsy sponsoring my video today. Also today, I wanted to share some things that I have had emails about, and I just haven't had the chance to answer those emails. And I was reminded as I was cleaning out my home studio and bringing things here that I needed to talk about these things. So first of all, you may remember this wall hanging that was hanging behind me in my long arm studio at home. And I had had the question, could you tell us about that wall hanging and a pattern? So I have looked and looked, and I cannot find the pattern. This was in a magazine many years ago. And so I need your help. If you know the magazine, I'm wondering if I made it and then got rid of the magazine because I was never going to use it again, or not going to make it again. I'd already made it once. But it was in a magazine, a quilting magazine, many years ago, and I just cannot locate it. And so I just wanted to tell you about the wall hanging because I was taking it off the wall in my home studio and thought I needed to bring it here and hang it up around here somewhere. This would not be a difficult thing to do, and I'll kind of explain. You can see there are this one has 8 spools. Now the 9th spot is a sewing machine, and I don't even remember this. I don't even remember. Maybe they were templates that you had to cut out or something, because you can see that it's not square. And these 2 little dots on there, they are, you know what, I didn't even applique around them. Looking at them now, I think I just pressed them down there. I usually use like that steam-a-seam, the little sheets that are you know, peel away on both sides. That's usually what I use, and I can tell I didn't even applique around them. Oh my goodness. I used my embroidery machine. I just have an embroidery machine on my sewing machine. Hardly ever use it, and again, this was many years ago, and so I somehow was able to get my name on there, so that's what that says. Does say Tammy on the sewing machine. But I just used scraps from my stash. All of the spools, super easy. There's lots of different spool patterns out there. Camille Roskelly has one. Fat Quarter Shop did one just a couple years ago that I did. So there's lots of different spool patterns that you can find. Lots of other designers have done them as well. So this one, you can pick whatever 5-inch square. This is not square, this is more rectangle, but again, I don't have the pattern. And it has sides on it, either side, easy corner triangles on your spool tops and bottoms, and then you add that. I used all ones from my stash. Looks like a lot of, you'll notice some thimbleberries fabrics, other fabrics that I've just had for a very long time. I've used them in many other projects. The background is just a cream color. And then it has half square triangles all the way around the outside edge. And that's it. That's it. Now for the quilting on this one, this is before I was doing any digital. So I did this, I do believe I did this on the Longarm. I don't know. I don't even know that. That's how long ago it's been. I don't know if I did this on the Longarm. No, maybe I did it on my domestic machine because it's a lot of stitch in the ditch. The only thing that I did not do stitch in the ditch, you can see I just did stripes, so it kind of looked like thread. Going across those, I did them on all of those spools. And I changed the color of the thread depending on the color of the spool. And I just did zigzag kind of lines, just random, nothing the same on any of them, back and forth. And then the rest of it is stitch in the ditch on the edges of the spools. I even did stitch in the ditch around each of the blocks. I did stitch in the ditch around the half square triangles. And don't look too close because it doesn't look too great. And so I made it into a wall hanging. I bound it just like you would a quilt. And then on the back, I did little tabs, same as the backing fabric, just little tabs. And they're like 4 across there. Instead of doing one long tube, I don't know why I did 4. To be honest, I really don't know. I did 4, and then I run a dowel rod through there, and then you can hang the dowel rod. Actually, when this was on my home studio, it was actually nailed into the wall in the corners. We did that instead of doing it on the dowel rod. So either way, but that's my spool quilt. And if I ever do find a pattern, or if you know the pattern for that, otherwise, I think you could probably put that together. You could probably even find a paper pieced type of sewing machine to add in as a block as well. I don't think that would be too difficult, but so sorry that has taken me so long to talk about. I can't wait to hang this up. I need to decide where. It doesn't really match my Lori Holt stuff, so I'm kind of wondering if I keep this room a little more brighter, those types of colors, and then my little office storage area that I do something a little more of my muted colors, because I kind of like both. I don't know. Kind of eclectic in my taste. I don't know. I love Lori Holt, but I love this as well. I don't know. Another email that I had recently was about the table toppers that we made last year for Maggie's wedding. And all of that, we made 4 or 5 different ones, and actually Maggie pieced them together. I said, Maggie, this is how you do it. And so I brought one that was kind of the prototype. We used this one. This is so faded. I'm almost embarrassed to show you, but this is so very faded. I originally made this when we had our pumpkin patch. And this would sit out on a little kid's table outdoors all month long of October. And we would put we would play checkers. We would call it pumpkin checkers. And we would use the pumpkins, the small little pumpkins that we grew. So the orange ones are called Jack B. Littles, and that would be on one side. The little white pumpkins that you see, we grew what was called Baby Boos, and those were the little white ones. And so we would set this out, and kids would play checkers. It was the biggest hit. They absolutely loved it. But this was my own pattern. It's just a checkerboard. But people I've had some emails about what size is that? Could you tell me instructions? So I brought my handy dandy tape measure, and I'm just going to tell you the size of the blocks. The blocks measure 3 inches by 3 inches, so you'll need to cut your squares 3.5 inches square. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 of one color, and there should be 18 of the other color. So 18 3.5 inch squares of 2 different fabrics, coordinating ones. Now we did, because we were doing this for a pumpkin patch, I did orange, and then you can see how faded that is. That's an actual, I don't know the fabric line, but it was a cream color, and then it had orange dots on it, and they are so faded, so faded. But that's what you get from sitting out in the sun for years upon years of Octobers. And so 18 of 2 different colors that you like to coordinate. If you go back to last year's videos, it would have been probably late September. Maggie was married in late October, so I'm not sure at what point I showed all the different table runners, but she went into my stash and she pulled coordinating fabrics. She's a great, Maggie did some interior design classes and courses, and so she's just got that natural ability of putting colors together. And I have to work at it a little bit more. She's just a natural. And so she went to my stash of fabrics and she pulled fabrics that she liked, and then she picked out borders. So they're all in much richer fall colorways. And then what she did is she had those on the reception tables at the wedding along with other decorations. She just put these on some of the tables. And then after the wedding, she gave these to her sisters. And so actually the other day I was over at Emily and Jonathan's house, and they have theirs sitting right out on their coffee table in the middle of the living room. So this is all I have, though. I have my old faded one. I need to redo one for myself. So this one, you can do as many borders as you want. That is really up to you. So once you put your center checkerboard together, on this one, I did a skinny border. This one, the first border and the third border are the same fabrics. The first border, I'm guessing I cut it at 2 inches, 2-inch strips, and then it finishes at 1.5. The second border, the brown that you are seeing, that finishes at a 1/2 inch. So I probably cut that at 1 inch. So kind of tiny, but I like the look of that. I really like it. So this one finishes at 1.5. This one finishes at 1/2. So this one was cut at 2 inches. This one was cut at 1 inch. Then this one, the third border, is a 2.5-inch border, so that was cut at 3. So that makes that super simple. So this one was cut at 2, this one was cut at 1, this one was cut at 3, and then when you finish it, then you're 1/2 inch shorter on those. On this one, I did make the first and the third border the same fabrics, and then I made the second border and the binding are the same fabrics, and I really like the look of that one. So this can be done, it doesn't have to be fall. I did orange and white because this was for pumpkin patch. Maggie did fall colors because that was her wedding colors. You could do this Christmas. If you didn't want to do the checkerboard in the center, then you can just do a big Christmas novelty fabric in the center, add a couple borders onto it, and makes a great table topper. And then in the center of your table, and then you can have your own decoration on the center of it. The quilt can just, because a lot of times when we do a table topper, you know, we put it on the table and then we cover it and we're not even seeing all the hard work we put into it. So if you want to not have that, then just use a novelty fabric in the center of your quilt, or the whole part where the checkerboard is on this one. Just use a novelty fabric, you do a couple nice borders, and then you've got a nice spot in the center of this table topper to add all of your other decorations. Maybe it's a Christmas tree, maybe it's a big pot of flowers, maybe it's a fruit bowl in the center, whatever your decorations are. Then you're not covering up all the patchwork that you spent time on. You just have a fabric there, and you're spending your time on the borders, which actually will be seen. The quilting on this one, I did on the Longarm. This one was so long ago, this is before I had digital, and I just did a meander all over. And you can see how over time this was washed and dried, and so it has that crinkly type of feel. There is batting in here. It's a thinner batting, but real fun. Here's the back of it. The back is not as faded as the front because this was always towards the sun. So just a little, if you're looking for quick Christmas gifts, it doesn't take long to do a patchwork in the middle, whatever your favorite colors. Maybe it's the colors of their living room, colors of their dining room. This would be a great project. It doesn't even have to be long arm quilted. You could do this on your domestic machine. You could do straight line stitching, either horizontal and vertical, or you could do it crosshatch type. That would be super simple to do. If you're doing it that way, I would go one direction and then come back the other direction. That way you're not pushing everything one direction. Do a lot of, you could do basting spray. You could do big stitch basting, anyway, anything to keep your quilt together and not so it's all shifting to one as you're stitching. But it'd be great Christmas presents to do very quickly and have those ready for your friends and family. All right, I do have 2 quilts that I wanted to talk about. that have already gone home. I was not able to film them before sending them home, so I do want to talk about those. So let's start with some pictures of the first one. These are Nancy's quilt, and these are Nancy's quilts. The first one that I just showed to you, this is the Shine On Sampler. Nancy is part of my Quilt Circle membership, and this is the quilt along that we did in 2025. And this is Bonnie and Camille's book. The book is called Quilt Bee. The pattern is called the Shine On Sampler. It is in the back of this book, and it is written as a block of the month. So if you're part of a guild, or you've got a small group of quilting friends that wants to do something together, this is already laid out as a block of the month. So it's super easy just to pick it up and to run it that way. So here's a picture. This is towards the back of the book. So the whole front part of the book has other projects, other quilts, table toppers, pillows, all of that kind of thing. And this is in the back. The fabric on the front is Camille's line. Oh, it'll tell me. Let me find it real fast. I think it would tell me what the fabrics are on the front of this. I cannot remember. Pardon me for just a second. This was pieced by Kimberly Jolly, binding by Deborah Hankins, quilted by Nicole Christopherson, fabrics from Shine On. You're all screaming at me. Shine On by Bonnie and Camille. That's why it's called the Shine On Sampler, because it's using their line, the Shine On line. So, but Nancy did hers in the summertime collection, and it's just beautiful. It looks very similar to this, but I love the bright colors of this one. It's so, so pretty. Nancy did such a nice job. So this is a great book to get a hold of, and you can do it in whatever fabrics you have. I'm doing mine in Lori Holt fabrics, left over from all of these other quilt-alongs that I have done. But there are other projects in this book, table runners that are very pretty. Those would be great ones for Christmas as well. This one's called the Weekender quilt. So great projects. I love, love, love this red and white one. So pretty. Rainbow baby quilt, if you're needing a baby quilt, so cute. There are so many good projects in this one. This one is called the Legacy quilt. She made this one with her mom and grandma, that Camille did. So pretty. So this book is still available. Oh, there's a nice heart one too. She's done this one with nieces and nephews, nieces and daughters, nieces and someone. Oh, this is Bonnie doing it with her grandchildren. There's the picture. So this book is still available. It was put out in 2020, but it's still available. And so if you're looking for a great quilt along, that's in the back. There's also a cross-stitch pattern in here that goes along with this quilt. So, so pretty. So Nancy's quilt is absolutely gorgeous. I really like it. For the quilting on this one, we use Melissa's Pea Pod. So we did it kind of smaller and tighter. Love this design. We did it in the Omni natural white thread. That keeps it all bright and cheery and playful. Melissa's Pea Pod it stitches out one row across. The rows do alternate. So that way they nest up nicely into each other. Kind of a play off of an orange peel design, but a little different. You have the circular part in there. The two orange peels the two parts of the orange peel, if you want to call it that, don't line up exactly. The top one is a little smaller, and the bottom one is a little bigger. It's a really cute design. I really, really like this one. So, and it's a modern type of look to this quilt, and I like that density that it adds in there. It's very, very pretty. The quilt measures 69 by 81, and Nancy says this will be hung in her sewing room. So how pretty is that? Maybe I'll do that with mine too, because mine will be Lori Holt fabrics. So can't wait to get back to mine. So she did, I hope I mentioned, she did use Camille's line Summertime. Very pretty, and a lot of the same colors as that Shine On line. So you'll want to get a hold of that book so that you can do that quilt also. Nancy's second quilt is also a Camille Roskelly pattern, and it is called Sweet Escape 2. It is done with all log cabin blocks. Isn't that amazing? I just love it. The color placement is what gives you this whole design. Log cabins are such a versatile block. It's a traditional block, old-time block, but so much can be done with it. Look at that whole star pattern that was created just with log cabin blocks. Very, very pretty. Nancy has done hers all in Camille Roskelly fabrics. She used Nantucket Summer, Sunnyside, and Shoreline, but obviously using all the blue and white prints from that. She says this is going to be hung in her dining room. So Sweet Escape is an 80 by 80 quilt. You need 13 blue fat quarters. Then it also calls for 3 3/4 yards of a gray background fabric, 2 yards of white, and then binding and backing. And just a beautiful, beautiful quilt. Love, love, love that. Then for the quilting on this one, we auditioned a lot of different ones, and she wrote out ones that she liked, and she had found this one called Infinity One. This is done by So Shabby Quilting, and I'd never done this one before, but when Nancy said she was going to be hanging this on her wall, I loved the density of this pantograph. I loved that it had more of a movement, because the pattern, the quilt itself, is very straight, lots of straight lines. And so I liked the combination of the density of this pattern along with the circular type of movement. You have that infinity symbol. This is very dense, very tight. It makes a nice wall hanging because the quilting is so dense on this one. So here are some pictures of very close in so you can see some of the quilting on that. So I do wish I had it here with me to show you, to point out things, but I needed to get it back to Nancy, and I worked late into the night to get it finished so that I could get it back to her. But the quilting was so beautiful. I really, really liked her idea of this one and using this one. So Infinity One, there were some other Infinity. Obviously, when it says Infinity One, that gives you kind of the indication that there are other infinities as well. And so you'll want to check that out. That is on So Shabby Quilting, and I really enjoyed that pantograph. I liked the density of it, just very, very fun. So those are Nancy's 2 quilts. I have 3 quilts from Judy, and I do not have patterns or fabric specifics to give to you. If I get those from Judy before putting this out on YouTube, then I will link that in the description down below. So always check in the description. I always link either pattern names, fabrics, pantographs, thread, anything that I can. If I don't have links for it, I do at least share the name for you if I can, so that you can find those on your own. I know that that's a help to you. So this first quilt here measures 50 by 50. I do not have fabric, but it is all in blues. We have the lighter blues, the medium blues, we have darker blues, and I'm just going to apologize right off the bat. I have a big old band-aid on my finger because yesterday I was grating some cheese with a hand grater, got too low, and just put some of those perfect little circles from the hand grater right into the end of my finger. So it is a cute band-aid. It is all floral, and I gave these to my Quilt Circle members that came to the retreat. They were in their little goodie bag when they arrived, because you never know when you're going to need a band-aid, and it's me that needs it. So I apologize. It's hard to talk about a quilt without using my hands and seeing that big old band-aid. So this quilt is made up of stars and a lot of flying geese units. So you can see your stars. You have 9 of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 across the bottom. Around this center star, this is created with flying geese units. So flying geese unit on all 4 sides of the star. Then this portion of the quilt is made with a square, and 2 half square triangles. But doesn't it look like it's just radiating out? I really like that. And then these larger squares around here just have easy corner triangles on them, just in one little corner, to again get that radiating effect as it's going out. Around the edge, any place that you're seeing kind of that arrow type of look, that is a flying geese unit around the outside edge. Then she's added a couple smaller borders, a smaller lighter blue border, and then a more of a medium color around the outside edge. Very, very pretty. I think I mentioned this measures 50 by 50, and this is going to a son up in Minnesota, and so it has flannel on the back. Great choice. This is a gray flannel. Should keep him nice and warm. The fabrics on the front are all cotton, but this is a flannel on the back and keeps it nice and soft, and also shows off the pantograph super well. This is called Abacus. I love Abacus. I should do this more and more because I just love the texture it creates on a quilt. This one I've done fairly large. You can see one of the squares, if you want to call them, is even larger, about as large as my whole hand. And so it is fairly large. I've done this much smaller on other quilts where maybe the square that you're seeing here is only like 3 inches. Gives great coverage, and it's just beautiful. But even larger, it does really nice coverage. I've used this on geometric quilts. I think it's on some modern quilts, it looks really, really good. On masculine quilts, I think it's a great one for adding texture without adding a theme of any kind. We did use the medium gray thread on this one. Light gray was a little too light for the front, so I used medium gray. And then the medium gray on the back just really adds into the texture, and it's super pretty. So with Abacus, it does stitch in a zigzag fashion. It's doing these lines and then coming down and doing these lines in the opposite direction, then doing these. So back and forth, but then that means it nests in very nicely with the other rows. So it really gives a great cohesive design over the entire quilt top. So you're not seeing specific rows from one to the other. You could follow the thread path and see where the rows are, but in just looking at it, it gives it a very cohesive design across the entire quilt. And I really like it on the front as well. Just beautiful. Really, really like this one. So great job, Judy. And Judy's second quilt is a fun one to pick apart and figure out how the blocks are done. This block creates that lattice type look, but it is done in the block itself, not in the sashing. It's actually in the block itself. So let me turn this, and then it's set on point. So let me turn this as it is on point. And we can talk about the block, and then I'll show you the setting triangles. So one block is where you're seeing the colored design. So right here, let's talk about this blue block right here. So you have a pink square, almost like a log cabin type of block. You have your pink square, then you have the green square, and then a green rectangle. You're making 4 of those. You're joining these 2 with a short piece of sashing, these 2 with a short piece of sashing, and then a long horizontal one across the middle, and that is your block. So then when you join the blocks together is how you're getting that lattice work to go across the entire quilt top. This is set on point, so that does mean that you have setting triangles. And here you can see one of the setting triangles. It's a very cute print. It almost looks like the My So Quilty Life, like her window pane one, and maybe that's it. I don't know, but it's a very soft looking background print, very pretty. So this is how you're doing when you're setting something on point. Here is your block, and you have your setting triangles, and your directions in your pattern will tell you the size to cut your square and then to cut that across the diagonal. And then to put this on point, you're taking this triangle and you are laying it right sides together on top of this square. This is the seam that you want to be straight. So you're laying this triangle over on top of that, and you're stitching this seam right here. Now the triangle will be longer than your block, and you can trim it up so that you get that 1/4 inch and can match up the points. But this is the line that you want straight. So you're creating your setting triangle here, same thing on this side, and then across the bottom you would have your corner unit, and this is usually half of one of those, and then you stitch that across the bottom. Then for the next row up, then you have 3 blocks across, and then your setting triangles. The next row you have 5 blocks, your setting triangles. The final one in the middle is 7 blocks, and then you have your smaller triangles on that one, and then it starts going back down. 5, 3, 1, and then your smaller triangle on the corner. And so that is how a quilt is put on point, is your setting triangles, and it's this line that you want straight, this line that you want straight, that one, and then it would flip the other direction when you're doing the other way, because that's, and I don't know if that makes sense. Let me show you. So here is a row of 5, but notice on this one, my corner, let me do it on this side. Here is my corner on this one, but this is the long row, and so now I want my corner to be this direction. So my triangle this time, I want this seam that's on the bottom edge of my block to be the straight one. So I would layer this triangle on top of here, I would do the seam here, and this is the line that I want straight. And then that triangle piece is going to stick out just a little bit, but that all trims up. Before you put your border on, you can trim it all up to, so you have a 1/4 inch if you want to get your points just perfect, and then you can add a border around the outside edge, just like Judy did. The backing fabric that Judy has used, this feels like a soft minky. It's not as thick as the Shannon Cuddle, but it does feel like a minky. It's silky, it's soft, it's got a little bit of a thickness, but more so than probably very similar to a flannel, but not quite as much as a Shannon Cuddle. But it does feel very soft and silky. It has the big purple flowers on there with the leaves as well. And then for the pantograph on this one, we used Paisley Playtime. We did this nice and open, big and large. I did use the baby pink thread, which is number 3129 in Omni. And Judy asked for a nice medium-sized density, so you can see the paisley does a paisley print, and then it does a paisley shape. And then on the outside of that paisley shape, it's just got big saucer type things. You're just saucer or clamshell around the outside edge of that paisley. And this is one that you could practice and do freehand as well. Then after you get back to the edge of the paisley, this one does a little bit of a spiral, a little bit of echoing, and moves on to the next one. So this went with the daintiness, the softness of this quilt. I like the Paisley Playtime. Very pretty. And I did not write down the size of this one. I need to do that. But it is a square quilt, so very, very cute, Judy. Judy's third quilt is a fun one to pick apart and figure out how the blocks go together. So this one, your block is created right here. You can see it right here. This is your block. So 4 squares with 1 square in the middle that looks like it's popping up off the quilt. And the reason and how that is done is when you're making your square here, this last square that would be in the corner, you'd make that the color that you're making this center one. So that's what gives it the illusion that it's popping up off. But this is the entire block, one block. It looks like it's probably a 15-inch block. It's pretty large. And then there's sashing between each one of those blocks, and then long horizontal sashing in between the rows. Then for the border around the outside edge, Judy has done just a tad bit bigger. This one is probably a 3-inch border as compared to the 2.5-inch strips that do the sashing, so it's just a tad bit bigger. I like this background. It is a dark background, and it has the triangles on it that look like a little bit of confetti type of print. It's very, very cute. I like a dark background. I don't do it very often, and I think to use a dark background is where you need some very bright prints, and this fits the bill. I don't have fabrics. I don't know the exact one. This may be jelly rolls. I could see where you could create this quilt using jelly rolls. The only reason it may not be is I can see a lot of the same patterns or a lot of the same fabrics repeating, and I don't know that in a jelly roll you would have enough fabric to do that many blocks that were similar. So maybe it's 2 jelly rolls. I really don't know. If I can get the pattern, I'll link it down below. But I really like it. This one measures 67 by 82, so it is a nice size quilt. On the back, she has some of that confetti type of print in the middle to make the backing larger. Then she has a floral on either side, and then a lighter green turquoise on the top and bottom. So very, very pretty. The pantograph on this one is called Daisy Delight, and Judy did ask if I would use a variegated thread. So I used a King Tut thread, which is also done by Superior Threads, but it is a 40 weight thread, so it's a little bit thicker. And I did that in the bobbin as well as in the top thread. So we have that same variegation on the back. And this one, we were looking for something that had the similar colors that was in the fabrics on the front. So it has some red, it has some green, it has some blue, has a little bit of purple, and it makes a really nice flower in the variegated thread. I did wine bobbins also, so that we had that same variegated thread in the bobbin. Daisy Delight is a nice big flower. I made this again larger. You can make it much smaller if you like a more dense quilt. This does give great coverage overall, even though it's larger. You've got your spacing in between the flowers, but it really is a nice coverage. I like the nice button shape that's in the middle of the flower. And then the petals are 6 petals. They're nice and chunky. They do come to a little bit of a point at the top, but not super skinny and not just rounded. They have just a tiny little bit of a point to them. And you can make this much smaller if you like I had mentioned, but Judy wanted it nice and open. This King Tut thread is called Gemstones. That's the one that we found that had the most similar colors to the fabrics that she had in the quilt top. So beautiful, beautiful quilt. Love it. So pretty. Nice work, Judy. This beautiful quilt is from Jeannie, and this is the picnic quilt from Cluck Sew. And Jeannie was kind enough to include the picture, a photocopy of the front and back of the quilt. So you can see, isn't that so cute? Picnic. I am not going to attempt to figure out how this goes together. It's very intense. This would be a fabric that a pattern that I would buy, because I don't want to sit and figure this one out. So this one it says it has blocks that are 12 inches. And all right, I do see it. Here's a block right here. 12-inch block right there. So some smaller squares, rectangle, smaller square, rectangle, rectangle, then a couple larger pieces. So there is the block right there. And 12-inch squares, you can make it in 5 different sizes. Jeannie has done the lap size, which is 51 by 68. That is 16 fat quarters or quarter yards. And then you need a background print, and obviously your backing and your binding, and that makes a 51 by 68. You can go all the way up to king size, which would be 42 fat quarters plus some background fabric, and that would measure 93 by 110. Nice size. So you can see the colorway that's done on the cover, very summertime. And I love that Jeannie's done this in Halloween fabrics. You've got your crow, very dark prints. I love the orange. It's a very lovely orange, not your bright. It's a little more muted orange, and I like that. Some of the fabrics are just gingham checks. Some of them are stars. Others of them have stripes, but then you do have a few that have crows or you know, kind of spookier type of things, but very, very pretty. This is an Andover line. I'll link it down below. I don't have the name of it written down here, but it was an Andover line from a couple years ago, so it may not be still available, but I'm sure they have something similar to it now. On the backing, she asked for a minky, and this is the Platinum Minky. This is a gray, a light gray. I have Platinum and Sterling that I both think are very similar in color. I don't know that I'm going to carry both. And then I have Graphite, maybe, that is a little darker, and then I have black as well. But she wanted the light gray, so this is Platinum. Very pretty, very, very pretty, and that shows off the pantograph very nicely. This pantograph is citrine and nice paisley type of design, kind of a feather type design. You have paisley, I'd say it's more of a feather. They're very similar, but more of a feather type, couple of feathers, not one strong backbone, but just a little bit. As it echoes out, then it does a couple more of the paisleys or the feathers. It does have a spiral. Notice that the spiral is very chunky at the end. It doesn't come to a tight point. I like that. And it almost feels like the feather type or the paisley type, it's like this splurt, like this poof, you know, type of thing. I did use the Omni Medium Gray on the front. The quilt top is more of a muted color, so the light gray again was just too bright, so I used the medium gray and used gray in the bobbin, but you do not see, with Shannon Cuddle Minky, the thickness of it, you just do not see the thread color on your Minky. Unless you would do something, you know, if you did red or something, you would see that. You would see spots of it. You probably wouldn't even see all of it. It's just the thickness of it that thread really soaks down into the base fiber. You're seeing what's standing up is all the fibers that are standing up like this, and then it's set on a base fabric. And so the stitching line is actually down here on the base fabric, and you're seeing all the other fibers sticking up. And that's also what's creating all of the dust, not dust, it's all of the stuff, you know, when you cut Minky. And you're going to have it, because this is a cut edge, you're going to have that until this gets bound. Once it's bound, then you're not going to have that anymore. It's just the loose fibers that are coming off the edges. So when you cut it, or when you have a cut edge that you're putting on your long arm, you are going to have just lots of the Minky fluff coming off. And once this gets bound, you're not going to continue to have that. But even in pictures, you'll notice, I can see some right here, when I'm taking pictures, that fluff is just going to be on there because it is a cut edge right there. So medium gray on the front, the gray on the back blends very nicely and just soaks right into the Minky. I love the texture that Minky creates, and this is the citrine pantograph. Beautiful. This is Marsha's quilt, and this is a free tutorial YouTube that Donna Jordan did, and the pattern is called Jagged X's. So you can print off a PDF that gives you the pattern for it, and there is a YouTube video that Donna did for this one as well, and I have linked those down below. Marsha says she has used various fabrics from her stash, and that is all the purples and the blacks and the grays and the greens and the turquoise. It's very, very cute. One block is right here, and it almost looks like a rectangle that is half one color and half one color, but it's done on a diagonal. I've never seen that block before. That's really cute. So, and then two of those are put together with the solid colors together. Here it's the same thing, but they're turned different directions, so then you're getting that whole design right there where they're all looped together. So it almost looks like a pinwheel, but it's not a pinwheel. Here is the block, half one color and then half the background color. That also is an important point. This other side is all background fabric. So half of the rectangle is colored, half of the rectangle is a background print, and then just turning those, and what a beautiful quilt. Then she has a border. You have a black border. Let me pull this in. So then you have a black border. That one's probably about a 3-inch border. And then look at this pieced border here. It's actually mitered on the corners as well. This is all squares and rectangles of different sizes. I really like that. That's really pretty. And then another black border around the outside edge. For her backing fabric, she did ask, or she sent minky. This is silver minky, so just a tad bit darker. I would say this is more of a medium gray. This is a nice color. And in the silver color, this is a Shannon Cuddle minky. Now for the pantograph, I think you can see it pretty well on the front and on the back. She asked for time warp. I love, 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 love. Look at the texture and the density. Said she wanted it nice and tight, so look at time warp. It's almost in a globe type shape, like a triangle type shape, but it not even triangle, more like a diamond type of shape, but it's kind of rounded on the outside edges, and it's weaving itself back in and back out like that, and then it goes on to the next one. And I just love the texture it creates. Now this is a very dense pantograph, the way that, I mean, it's a dense one anyway. The sizing of this one is about 4 or 5 inches tall. You can make it larger, but understand this really is a dense pantograph no matter what size you make it, because of just all the echoing and different lines that are in there. But by putting Shannon Cuddle on the back, it really keeps the quilt nice and soft. So even though it is very dense, you're not getting the stiffness. I mean, maybe a little bit on the front, but you're not getting that stiffness that you might not like, not everybody likes, by putting such a dense pantograph on a quilt. The Shannon Cuddle on the back really softens that up. So beautiful fabrics. She said this is all from her stash. Nice background print. This is a tone-on-tone, very, very similar though. It's got maybe some flowers on it. And then the rest is all from her stash. She's done a nice job of pulling colors that coordinate and look good together. This measures 73 by 81. And you'll want to go watch that tutorial by Donna so that you can make one for yourself.